Hi, this is John Ondo from Marketing Media and Cupcakes. And before we get into today's episode, I just want to say thank you so much for listening. We're back after being gone for over 4.5 years. And I hope you get a chance to listen to episode 77, where we explain why we were gone for so long and that we're back for at least 3 more episodes. Angel and I are big supporters of entrepreneurship, and we love small businesses and faith-based businesses. And we just want to encourage you through our podcast each week. What's going to determine if we continue with more episodes will be the response. Subscribe to us on your platform. Send us an email at john@ondomedia.com. That would help us know you're listening and you want more episodes. So thank you so much, and let's get into today's episode. The damage is out there, and who's going to survive this is going to be the people who provide good customer service.
Yep.
Good sales support. So customer service, I believe, is very important. Your reviews are very important.
This is the small business podcast that is sweeter than all the rest. Marketing, media, and cupcakes.
Welcome to episode 60 of Marketing, Media, and Cupcakes.
No.
I'm John Ondo. I'm a filmmaker and a small business owner, and along with me is my beautiful wife, Angel.
Hi there, episode 60.
Episode 60. And you do customer service with a big company, as well as you have a cupcake business here at the house.
I do.
We're going to talk about customer service and what happens when you get bad reviews. We're going to get into this today. But first, tell me about this cake that you're moments away from finishing for a customer. Because this is a fascinating and actually a delightful story, I think.
Yes, it is. So a lovely person reached out to me on my website and asked if I did just custom cakes or did I do custom recipes. And I said, I've done a custom recipe or two. Can you tell me what you need? And she said, my father grew up in Brooklyn. It's going to be his 70th birthday, and his favorite cake is called an Ebinger's Blackout Cake.
Wow.
And I said, I have never heard of it. Let me do some research. And so I immediately pulled up, good old Google and Pinterest and all those fun things and found the recipe and found the history. Apparently Ebinger's was a bakery in Brooklyn. I was like, okay, so what's so special? Well, it's a very nice devil's food cake, but instead of a normal buttercream or something in the middle, it has pudding, and it's an actual on the stovetop pudding, and it's chocolate. So the cake is chocolate, the pudding is chocolate, and then there is what the gentleman I watched on YouTube called magic icing, which again is an icing made on the stovetop that as it sits, it thickens, and then that is what you ice it with. But then what can't wait for is the fact that you then cover the cake after you frosted it with the crumbles from one of the layers. So you make 2 cakes, you cut them in half, and then one of those 4 layers ends up becoming kind of the crumble on top. So really what it is it's not a highly decorative in the sense of complex, but it's a lot of steps. There was over 37 ingredients. Definitely a lot of chocolate, a lot of heavy cream. But the final results will get posted later this evening. So definitely check out my Instagram or my website.
I would like to try one. And I'm not a big sweets person.
I know.
But this just looks amazing.
Yeah. After going through it, and again, I'm going to finish it today. The icing is the final interesting little science experiment to make sure that it works. I think I can do this again very easily, but the batter was delicious. The pudding was really good. So it's going to be, I can't wait. And she's thrilled that I'm doing this. She said that's her dad's favorite. He's going to be 70, and it's just going to bring back a lot of memories that they haven't been able to share. So I'm excited about that.
So again, what I always recommend for Angel to do as kind of the media marketing guy a little bit here is I will ask her to make sure when she picks up the cake today to say, hey, would you, if you're okay with it, would you take a picture with your dad with the cake with a big smile, we hope. And that's always the best social media marketing you can do. So
definitely. That
will be excellent. And we'll give you more updates on that as it comes. So follow us on Facebook and Instagram, and we will keep you posted on that. Mm-hmm. About a week ago, I had a bunch of my buddies over. We were watching the Memorial Tournament, and I was flipping through my phone as I always did, and this happened. I got a little note that you've gotten a review from Marketing Me, or not from Marketing Me, Cupcakes for Angel's Custom Cupcakes. And I went and looked at what it was, and I was like, what? And a lady had written that Angel's Custom Cupcakes had made her son, I believe, this smash cake, and they had a picture of it, and it was terrible. It was the stuff was melting in it, and all these problems. Don't waste your time with Angel's Custom Cupcakes. And I'm like, okay, that's weird. And when I looked at the picture, I'm like, that's not a cake you've done. Now, I know there's always occasionally bots and people who just have nothing better to do who will just put bad reviews on people. But this seemed like a sincere review, but I assumed it was misdirected. So I reached out to you and I said, you didn't suddenly make a cake for somebody in another part of Ohio, did you?
I was like, no, I don't know who this person is.
What we're going to get into today is how to deal with the response. So I'll just tell you real quickly how I responded to this.
And thank goodness John did, because I hadn't even seen it. And by the time I got out there, it was already gone. So I don't.
You have to check your reviews and make sure you're keeping an eye. And I know that's one more thing to do in the midst of a lot of stuff going on right now with safety protocols and COVID and everything. But you got to keep track of your reviews, because if you think COVID could take something down, a bad review can really bust up your groove there.
This is true.
So I quickly got onto the review, and she talked in her bad review said that it really ruined her child's birthday.
Yes.
And so I responded, and the first thing I said to this person, but put their name in there, is like, I am so sorry that your child's birthday was ruined because of this cake, and it does look substandard. However, this is not a cake that my wife, Angel's Custom Cupcakes, made, because I can tell by the packaging and so forth. This was not I know what cakes we have done. This was not a cake made by us. Would you please take down this review? I'm very grateful for this lady who realized she made a mistake, and she came back immediately and said, I am so sorry. It was the wrong place. And took the post down to the point where I couldn't even show you what it said. So that's how we dealt with a bad review. We have never had one like that, and I know from other clients I've had. So what we want to talk about today is how do you handle a bad review, and there are ways that you can do that. Not only reviews online, but what do you do with a phone call or an email from a customer who is upset with your product, and maybe it was legitimate, maybe it wasn't. So we're going to discuss that a little bit today. So as we mentioned many times, Angel works in customer service with a major company, so she deals with all the you train folks on how to deal with this, as well as you get to deal with it yourself. When somebody says, I want to talk to a supervisor, it eventually can get kicked up to you.
Correct. I have a lot of things that are just directed at me. Can you please reach out to the customer?
We've all been through that phone tree where you talk to one person, they don't understand, they kick you to somebody else, they don't understand, and by the time you get to the third person, you're ready to murder somebody.
It depends. Typically, because I'm not in the call center environment, I don't get the live customer. Usually it's after the fact. It's usually, the long email of what's gone on. And so I can do my research before I call.
Sure.
And that's what we're going to kind of talk about today in this little acronym that we learned years ago. And anybody who's been in customer service, and if you've experienced customer service, you may now recognize what that person did, quote unquote, did to you, if you will, through this acronym. But
we've had it happen to us when we've called in on different appliances that we had problems with.
Oh, yeah. But it's called taking the heat. And of course, that means something. HEAT means something. And John did exactly that. Although it wasn't a voice-to-voice interaction, but he did. He took the first one is H, which is hear them out. So it's literally the biggest and number one thing, especially if you're having a verbal conversation with somebody, you hear them out. Do not interrupt. Do not stop them. Do not cut them off. That is like, you might as well just ignite another bomb when someone's upset. So that's exactly what he did, is he heard her out. He didn't jump in and he just heard her out. So the next one is the E of heat, empathize with what's going on, that you can understand how upset they would be. And that's exactly what John said. And he went right into the A, which is apologizing. So it's like, I'm so very sorry that this happened, that you had these, this horrible experience, and that those, your cupcakes didn't turn out.
Even though it wasn't our cupcakes, it wasn't anything else, you still said, I'm so sorry you had this terrible. Nobody wants to have a terrible experience like that with a birthday party.
Yeah, exactly. And then the last one is the T, which is to take action. Now, we couldn't take action other than John, I think, even did say at the end, if you ever do need anything, reach out to us. But she's farther away.
Well, the take action was, I would appreciate it if you would take down the post.
Correct. Yeah.
Because, obviously my concern was at this point, great, we're going to have this review and it's going to be sitting out there and she's not going to see it for 2 weeks or whatever. And then we've got this bad review sitting out there. But thankfully, she did respond to it, and all things worked out great.
Yeah. So again, it happens. Sometimes it can happen so quickly where, again, you have to hear them out. You have to empathize with the situation. You then apologize. And the big thing on apology is, remember, for those of you who are the person who's dealing with the issue but didn't cause it, try not to take it personally. I think I've talked about that before in other podcasts when it comes to customer service. It's very hard when they're calling it, saying it's you, and you weren't even involved. Yeah. You just happened to be the one to get the call. So you have to kind of attempt to distance yourself, as difficult as it is, but you have to be able to apologize, but for the situation, not for anything that you have done. So it's you're apologizing for, I'm sorry that happened to you. And again, trust me, when you think about these again, you'll realize you've been heated, if you will, more than once by someone in customer service, if they know what they're doing. And then lastly is take action. And the big one there is not about what you can't do. The customer says, well, I want this and I want this and I want this. And maybe you can't do any of those things. Don't start with I can't do that, I can't do that, because that's going to reignite. You talk about what you can do. And you never say, well, I can't do that. You say, well, here's what I can do. And so you
somebody
avoid
said,
that.
I need a new cake by tomorrow. You don't say, I can't do a new cake, but you would respond with,
well, maybe this is probably what I could do. At this point, because of the timing, I could probably get some cupcakes together for you. I don't know that I could do an entire cake. So again, it's
what
hopefully
you can offer.
Exactly. Yeah. And make it legitimate and real. And again, don't upcharge them, don't gouge them. Again, if it is something that you or one of your coworkers or someone that you're working with actually did legitimately make an error, then you do need to sacrifice and make it good, because unfortunately, as I've known in customer service with a company who's been around for 100 years, and we do everything right 500 times, the one time we did it wrong, you never not hear about it. And it just takes one time to ruin all that other good stuff.
So a couple of things, and those are great points on this. And we're going to talk about the online posts, which Angel's talking more about phone and email, direct contact. But I want to talk about posting on the website in a second. And then I want to speak about what happens when somebody calls up and just raves of how great you are. So we want to get into all these things here in the next couple minutes here on Marketing Meeting Cupcakes. So a couple things, too, as I was doing a little research on this. And this, I remember back in, I don't know, it may have been 20 years ago, I watched the 60 Minutes. It was 60 Minutes or Dateline, I can't remember. But they did a thing where, they have people going into restaurants and planting flies in soups and different things as an attempt to figure out how people respond. And, that people's like, well, that fly didn't come in the soup, or the hair wasn't such and such. How they responded, and they had an expert at this exact problem. And I always remember he says it's all about the recovery.
Yes.
There will be problems with your product. That it just happens. Nobody's perfect. It's not about there will be a problem. It's how you recover. Mm-hmm. And so that's something I've always tried to live by. We had an incident where we had finished a documentary, and trying to help out the client, we produced some artwork for some posters and things, which we had all the sponsors at the bottom of the movie poster. And of course, one of the guys who we worked with directly on this whole thing, I didn't click a layer on Photoshop or something, and his logo was left off on the DVD copies. It was on the posters, but one thing it wasn't left on. And I got a call from somebody else, and they said, listen, you left his logo off. He's a little upset. And I just could have just stuck my head in the fan at that point.
Yeah, I remember that.
So what I did, because I felt bad, I knew him, and it was like, it wasn't intentional, but it was just, there was a lot of things going on, which I did not say that in the email, but I wrote him a long email saying, I apologize. We left a layer off on this. It was not intentional. And then I said, here is what we're going to do to make this right. First of all, we've corrected the artwork, and we've sent new ones out, and I'm taking care of the expense on that. And I'm going to additionally add an apology onto the Facebook page saying, hey, we forgot this logo, please, blah, 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 blah. And he was great with it. Because it was the fact we recognized we made a mistake, and here's what we're doing to make it good.
Yep.
So that's always a good thing. Another thing I read in the some of the research I did today, is we all live in fear that, oh no, we've lost this customer. And the word is people still 70% of the time return for another try.
Yep.
So oftentimes we think, oh no, and they're going to kill us and it's going to be a horrible event. And really 70% of the time they return for another try. So it's one of those situations where somebody is absolutely just being a hothead, let them go. If they're not going to come back, they're not going to come back. And maybe you're better off not having them come back if they are like being super picky about something, or they don't, they were upset that it was an hour late in whatever and you couldn't, whatever. So again, 70% of the time people do return even after having a bad experience. Look how many times I've gone to restaurants that I say I'm never going to come back again, and I end up coming back.
I'm laughing because there's a restaurant who I will not name, who's very close to our home, who literally every single order we place, there's something that's been wrong or missing, and yet we still keep going back because we do love the restaurant. It's a chain and it's whatever, but I just laughed when you said that. I'm like, okay, literally we've gone, but the last time they get it all right.
They did get it right.
They did. The fourth time was a charm.
So here's how we gave the example earlier in the show of how I responded to a Facebook review, and again had a wonderful experience because the lady said, I'll take that off, and that was perfect, and we appreciate that. So sometimes you get reviews that you cannot take off, or because on Facebook, Yelp, and Google, I think in most places, if somebody posts, and they have every right to post, and this is part of transparency, and this is part of what you have to decide to do with your business if you want to have reviews. And reviews are very, very critical. People look at reviews all the time, but I do know a bad review can do a lot of damage. So here's a couple things I can tell you about on online reviews. First of all, you do have the option of not putting reviews on your site. So if you're somebody who says, I don't want to deal with this, maybe it's a subjective business where people don't like, 50% of the time what you do, or they like the gripe. And we all do know, and we say this all the time in broadcasting. Nobody, well, I think it's in business in general, very few people ever write wow, this was great. 90% of the time, it's always you got this wrong. Yeah.
I tell that to my folks all the time in training. I said, you don't hear, especially when I talk collections.
Yes.
When you're talking about people, 90% of the people pay their bill. It's the 10% that you have to call. And of that 10%, 2% of them are dirtbags.
Yeah.
So it's literally, but who do you hear from? The 2%. That's who you hear from. Everybody else, we don't have time or the time to call every person and say, thank you for your payment. Thank you for your payment. I would love to do that. I would love to thank them for doing what they're supposed to do. However, what do we spend time on? The people who do not want to pay or have 75 million reasons not to pay.
And on top of it, you have to understand is if you're actively pursuing reviews for your website on Yelp and different things, which I do recommend you do. I'm in a process of actually adding reviews to my website. I haven't because I have such a specific clientele, and it's a very small amount of clients we deal with in a year that we didn't feel it wasn't a big deal, and I didn't want to maintain it. But we are doing it now, which it means I've got to send surveys and different. Hey, please let us know how we do. We all get those emails all the time. Please let us know how we do, and I'm like, let me alone. But especially if you are like Angel's Cupcakes or something like that, you do need to have those reviews out there. But you do have the choice to not have them. And if you don't think you can maintain them, if you don't think you can push them, I think you're better off not having reviews on your page than having one or two, and maybe half of those are bad reviews. So if you can't manage your reviews, I think it's worth the thought to taking them offline and then adding them later when you can, and try to make that a priority. So that's first thing on that. So when you get a Facebook or Yelp review, you can't remove it. So you're going to have to contest it or something like that with Facebook, especially if it's an irate person who is saying all kinds of things about you that are maybe inappropriate. That will typically that can typically be removed because it breaks the guidelines of Google and Yelp and everybody else. So you do have that option, but it takes a while for that to happen. So you're stuck with a bad review out there. The most common thing that we talk about And I had a client a year ago or a couple years ago who was in a very bad situation with a former client who enjoyed very much putting paragraph-long bad reviews with a whole bunch of hearsay and just horrible negative stuff. We did, try to get Facebook to take it down, but Facebook, a lot of times, if there's not anything that you can say, hey, this guy is lying, they can't take it down.
Sure.
And there was nothing in there we could say that necessarily on. So the common term is to bury it. And we all know when you go to Amazon to different places, you'll flip through, one or two reviews and then find one star.
Yeah.
And then you flip through and there's 10 more 5 stars. And we all know that there are dirty shenanigans going on with competition who will go out and put negative reviews on your website so that they can boost theirs and so forth. So the best thing to do is to try to bury it. Now, getting your friends all to write your reviews is one way it can be done. I don't recommend it because a lot of times they verify you're a customer. I know with real estate agents and so forth, the different review sites, they will verify that you actually bought a home or work with this client. So you can't just randomly say, this is a great realtor, when in fact you never worked with them.
Yeah.
And you'll see different, and you've seen this on Amazon too. You'll see these reviews where it's like, this was a great product. It promptly arrived at my house and such, and then you look through like 60 other products and the exact same cut and paste line has been used on it.
Mm-hmm.
And it says verified customer, and it probably is a verified customer. They're buying the products and then writing the reviews. So it's not even legitimate reviews I don't take completely seriously anymore because of this. But the best way for you to take care of a review is first respond to it. I think you do need to respond, even if it's an insane person writing stuff that you're an alien and you're
always
should be put in jail. Because this tells your potential customers how you deal with conflict.
Exactly.
I'm so sorry you had a bad experience with us. I would like it if you could call me.
Yep.
And we could discuss this further. You do not want to get into a back and forth online post war with a bad review. Mm-mm. So you go on and do that. And then if it doesn't work much better, then you go into what we call a barrier review. Actively go out, get more reviews, and if you've got, let's just say you have 20 reviews and there's one bad one, if you can push another 10 through legitimate reviews, most people will look at that and say, they're not going to look through 25 reviews that are all shining and great and go, oh, well, this guy has said he didn't like your product, and I'm going to believe it. We all know there's that one person. So do respond to a bad review. Gives you an opportunity to show your customers, what you're doing, and that you do respond and you do listen. So those are a couple things that you can do. Let's talk real briefly about good reviews. And here's a couple things that I love. If you are on Instagram, I'm trying to remember which place I was at. Oh, we were at I'll just say the name, Swenson's. It's a place that does milkshakes and hamburgers and so forth.
Yes.
Took Elaine, my oldest, I went and got a shake there. It was at the beginning of the COVID crisis. They hadn't shut down yet. And I took a picture just saying we went and grabbed lunch and hashtagged them or located them. And I got a thing back from them saying, thanks so much. So glad you and Elaine had a great time at Swenson's. And I thought, well, that's very impressive. They're monitoring their social media feed to the point where they put that on there. Chick-fil-A is also very good at that and some other places. So if you have an Instagram happy audience, as I will say, mm-hmm. I do think that makes a difference when you can follow your Instagram feed or your Facebook feed and somebody tags you and says, hey, we had a great time today at the golf course, to retweet it or put a thing, hey, so glad you came. And if you can even make an offer and say, come back and show us this when you come back and we'll give you 10% off or something like that. Again, that's building a relationship. That tells me, ooh, I'm special. I'm a VIP at this place now because they're monitoring what I do. Mm-hmm. What do you guys do with customer service when people give you a nice rating or so? Do you do anything special with that?
Unfortunately, in my world, in the customer world, we don't have anything like that. Now, in our consumer world, mm-hmm. when we're talking consumers, so there's very different.
Because Angel deals more with the big hospitals and the big guys who.
Correct. So, but in our consumer world, and we do have folks who I wish I would have a little bit more interaction with them, do monitor our social media and monitor where our name comes up, and they do reach out to customers. And I know for a fact, because I've placed a lot of the orders going to some of those folks, but media influencers or sometimes celebrities where they've mentioned us or our product, I end up placing an order that we'll send to them. And it's not like we've reached out to them. That it's literally they mentioned us in something or mentioned one of our products, and we just turn around and give them a thank you and send them something.
We say this all the time, depending on what you're buying, from cars to whatever. And we always say, oh, yeah, they're a great brand, but they have great customer service, but they have bad customer service. Mm-hmm. So, again, I'm talking to small business people. I don't expect, Tim Cook from Apple's probably not listening to us today. He normally does. But if and they've got great customer service, and that's one of the first things I always say about Apple, great customer service.
Well, I'll throw out KitchenAid. I'm sorry. KitchenAid. I'm going to throw them. Your stuff sucks.
The products stink.
The products
their
suck.
Customer service is fantastic. Is fantastic because they're very used to getting a lot of negative calls.
They know exactly what to say, and I'm talking about their large products.
Yeah,
their stoves, refrigerators, dishwashers.
But they know how to handle a customer and kick it down the line till the warranty runs out, and then you're screwed.
Yeah. So
what happens.
Again, I tell them every time I call them, which is a lot. You're very good at this. Yeah. You're very good. They're wonderful. They're in Tennessee, so they've got that nice little Southern twang.
You work,
and you just you're like okay, and everything is okay, even though it's not.
You work recently with GoDaddy. GoDaddy had great customer service.
GoDaddy has fantastic customer service,
and you can go to a lot of less expensive places.
Oh, sure.
To deal with it, but I can't. But I need that customer service. I need that quick thing. So
it's priceless.
So I'm going to say. So I'll say this generically to all of our small business colleagues listening right now. And depending on what your situation is, customer service may be a big thing on your burner, may not be. But here's where we're going into, and I'm going to get a little negative for just a second with what's going on. As we are recording this on the Thursday that this is dropping, we are looking at with shutdowns and everything else. I think it's going to get worse again. I do think we're going to come out of the woods in 2021 with the shutdowns and everything, but there's going to be a lot of damage done. I know major companies right now. I've talked to a friend last night, found out he's been furloughed and he's getting cut in a major management position. So the damage is out there, and who's going to survive this is going to be the people who provide good customer service. Yep. Good sales support. Yep. So you can't sit back and say, sales team, go out and get them at all cost, and then they're jerks and they screw over your customers, and then you're done, and you're not going to get that return business later this year or next year when everybody else comes back. So customer service, I believe, is very important. Your reviews are very important.
Yes.
And so make an effort to make this work, because I do think the ones who take the time for the reviews, I'm making a big deal out of it with my own business this year, because I know it's going to get worse, and I there's a specific set of customers I am trying to get in front of, and I want to get in front of them now, because if I don't, they might go out of business in the next 6 months. And if I can get in front of them, there's a good chance I may be able to save their business with some marketing and media, with videos and online presence and so forth. So we're going into, I think, another season where it's going to get a little scary, but go through and look at your system. Go through and see, is my website right? Is the messaging right? Have somebody else look at these things. How am I dealing with customers? Am I getting a bunch of people who are getting upset with me? If that's the case, you need to look at some reviews and go through some processes to fix that, because we're not in the world anymore where somebody who's mediocre can survive. I think you're either good and you will survive. That's my 10 cents. We went a little long today, but if you have questions, if you have customer service and review ideas, you want to send it to john@ondomedia.com. Let us know what topics we can help you with as we're going into this next season. That unfortunately I do think it's not going to be horrible, but if you are prepared, I think your business will not only survive, it could thrive, depending on how you respond to that. And we want to help you out and see you through it. So
yes, definitely.
Like us, share us on Facebook, Apple Podcast, Spotify, everywhere we can do a podcast. And until the next time, keep living the dream.
Connect with John and Angel via Facebook and Instagram, and let us know your thoughts. Marketing, Media, and Cupcakes is a production of Ondo Media.